So I'll start with, I guess, an apology confession. I totally made a sexist assumption when you guys said that you met at coaching at pickup company. I assumed he was a coach, and I assumed you were an approach model, and which is why I wasn't thinking, okay, I don't need to. It's cool that you're in the pickup industry, but I don't need to interview an approach model, you know. But no, you were, and you could please tell your story. But you were the female pickup coach in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Probably. I think I was the first who really got into it at the level that I did. There's probably been others that heard about the community, came in and out. But I really wanted to create the equivalent of the techniques that existed for guys. And I was super frustrated that it hadn't already been made. And this was in like 2008.
So 2008, you're like 17 or something?
So I started writing the book around that time, but I had already been like practicing pickup for a few years by then.
Okay. And I just want to say, like, so when I was doing pickup, which was around the same time, or like dabbling, and I was like this anxious nerd amongst other anxious nerds, or of different levels of anxiety nerds.
Yeah.
Whenever there were to be a woman there, if she was an approach model, I did feel like a lot of the female dating coaches were basically women who were like, oh, there's that much money of guys just telling other guys to approach women. It's like, I could do that. And there was this, they always had such a condescending way of talking to men. It was usually women in their 30s, you know, somewhat attractive or, you know, confident. And they're basically like, this, you know, I'm a woman, so I'm going to tell you all about women. And it was so, and they've never approached a woman in their life. Like they don't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
So this is why what your story is like very interesting, because you got into it for the same reasons men get into it.
100%. Like I was really bad socially growing up. And when it became time to like speak with boys at that time, I didn't.
Like in high school?
Yeah. And I would fall in love like with someone who I knew the name of, never spoken to, and I would never approach him. I just like love him from afar, and I'd be so scared of him.
And this is growing up in Denmark, right?
Yeah.
And I assume it must be similar in all high school environments. But like I feel like most shy women would still get approached by the guy. Like it's very rare that I've met a woman who felt like I need to know how to approach men.
So I remember I didn't go out a lot. This was it. Even before I started game, I didn't really go out. I didn't apply myself in social situations at all because I knew I was really bad at it. And if there was a guy coming up to me in a bar, let's say I was at a birthday party with some friends, right? And he would come up to me, I'd literally just stare at him until he left.
Okay.
So he would try to get a conversation going, and I would give him nothing. And when you give someone nothing, they assume that it's
you're a bitch.
Yeah. Or that you don't want them there, that they need to get out of your space, right? So that was what would happen again and again, even if I actually was interested. So I could see my friends being really good socially. I surrounded myself with women who were excellent at social dynamics, like naturally, which was in some parts, I think, quite clever because I could start to see what they were doing, what was working. And in another way, it was really just made me realize how bad socially I actually was.
So you weren't awkward with women so much?
No.
Okay, just men.
Just men.
Why do you think that was?
I think like the same way that guys get anxious, nervous, weird around women, if you meet someone you are really attracted to, you get nervous. And I was 16 at this time, right? So like I saw someone who I thought looked really interesting, and I would get really nervous that I wasn't good enough for this person.
I mean, I guess it's just so confusing to me because I imagine that a woman who gets approached basically from when puberty starts by boys, whether she likes them or not, eventually that like kind of fuels the confidence. Like I've never heard this from a woman who was even shy of like.
I wasn't in situations where I could get approached.
Okay.
And when I was, it was very rare that I did get approached. I have had a tendency of being the friend. So the friend to the hot girl, the friend to the sociable, popular girl. So that was like my path growing up, really. I was always friends to the really, really popular girls, women. Yeah.
And that didn't, I mean, I kind of want to like watch your high school career. It's like that never led to like, because I just remember me being the shy guy with a popular guy friend that some sort of like, she had like he hits on someone and they hit it off and she has a friend and we end up awkwardly talking and like that was something.
No, there was no talking with
and I
me.
always assumed it was way easier for women, right?
I mean, I was 25 when I found out that I'm also neurodivergent. I have ADHD.
Okay.
And so growing up, it's for me now puzzling that no one saw it. So I was just really uncalibrated, weird, I did not know how to small talk. I could not give people anything back. I felt so enclosed and I had so many limitations I put on myself to the point where I would just like close down, become quiet, not engage. And if you have a person like that at a party, that's not the person you're gonna approach.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay, so you were searching online for how to be socially confident?
No, I was writing like hopeless romantic, writing an essay on love.
Okay.
Yeah. And I found an article with a comment of some sort, which was like something like, who needs love when you have the game? And I think this was 2006.
Okay.
So a year after the game came out.
2008 probably. I think it came out in 07.
No, it came out in 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because
Anyways.
otherwise, like my whole timeline doesn't make sense. So I found that comment. I was like, what is the game? I Googled the game and this book came up, right? And I started reading like really superficially comments, people using this thing, and I got really upset for like the first 15 minutes. I was like, what the fuck is this? And manipulation, and I don't want anyone doing that to me. And like really, I think the initial like, what is
and
this,
just
right?
framing for all the Gen Zers listening, because I think a lot of, what the pickup community, like the associations now are a little bit different. Like back then you had like Ross Jeffries with like how to hypnotize, like he was on a really gross looking individual, how to hypnotize young women by like doing like weird things with your hands and your voice. And there's like, it was really a wild west, and it was pre-social media. So it was hard to vet anyone. There's no comments. You just find a sales page and it's like, well, this guy says he has the answers to everything. And that was true for everything. Like I got roped into a lot of things that weren't even pickup in that, the internet, early internet marketing. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I found this, I was really upset. And then I got really interested because I think it sparked a moment for me where I was like, okay, so I can actually practice getting better socially. Like that's a thing. It's not just something you're born with and everyone finds you charismatic and interesting. You can actually practice these things to become this. And instead of writing, like speaking of ADHD, instead of writing my essay for the 3 weeks I had, I was just like buying books online, ordering them, reading like a crazy person, finding everything I could online, and wrote my essay within like the last 24 hours.
But it was all information for men how to get women.
Yes,
okay.
All of it.
Because, what was the kind of the narrative, I think in the pickup industry, but also in culture, was that men at least have an opportunity to change their status, right? Because looks aren't the most important things. You can learn how to make more money. You can get bigger muscles. You can learn social skills through what the pickup industry offered men. But the idea was like, oh, be lucky, be grateful you're a man because women can't do this. Women are kind of stuck with their biological markers, right?
Yeah.
But that's not true.
No,
or that's not, yeah.
So it took a while to figure this out, right? So the only book that was out at this time for women was called The Rules.
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah. And I read that and I was super pissed off because the only thing it did was basically in a newer, fancier fashion say, do not have sex with anyone you're interested in until they've kind of committed to you, and then you will be able to get married. And I was like, what if that's not what I want? Like, what if I just want to be able to meet any guy I want, attract any guy I want, get him in the kind of relationship I want? Like all the things I was reading that guys were learning to do, right? And so I started this blog.
Wait,
right?
so well, one thing I remember, people used to always joke, if a guy reads the game and a girl reads the rules, would they just cancel each other out, or would they just be gaming each other? I mean, that's just random anecdote, but also why did, I mean, you had why do you think you had these kind of typical male desires?
I think it was I think I just really wanted to take control of this part of my life, and I didn't want anyone defining as a woman what I was supposed to want or do. And it was really annoying for me that the only material out there was still trying to define me as a woman. And so I started practicing pickup looking at the guys' materials. I started practicing that, and that was the beginning of it. And then, of course, throughout the following years, I figured out what needed to be tweaked, what needed to be kind of the same principle, but the other way around, like shit testing, for example. Called shit testing when it's from the guy's point of view, right?
Yeah.
And I would use it usually as a test of congruency. So you have a guy who's presenting himself as something specific, and then shit testing him to test his own congruency within the frame that he's presenting you.
To see if you wanted to be with him, or
just as a way of screening for the attributes that you're looking for. Yeah. So I mean, I wrote this ebook after a few years when I got hired as a coach.
Yeah.
And it kind of systematically put everything that I had learned.
And the ebook was for women.
It is for women.
Okay.
It's in Danish and it can't be found anywhere anymore. But yeah, it kind of made a whole new theory.
So just on like your system, if you will, I imagine you're reading stuff like Mystery and like his like step-by-step autistic, style of communication, right? And then at some point you realize, and then you were also reading men writing about women and what women do, their shit test, the comfort test, whatever. And then you're kind of like merging it into how to seduce men. Okay.
Yeah. So it was such a long, it was a wild journey for me because I went from this very introvert, awkward, socially awkward person
to an engineer.
Socially.
Because on what you just said before, it's like there would never be pickup advice on qualifying a woman except as a technique to get her to like you. That was one of the things about pickup that I think maybe led to misogyny, but whenever I'm like in quotes defending pickup, I'm like, it wasn't that the material itself was hating women. It's just like, it's coming from this place that a woman liking you is the only metric of success. And that's the only way you look at women. So of course women become numbers because it doesn't matter her qualities. It's just like this shit. So like to qualify a woman was just a technique to be like, oh yeah, I'm so high value that I'm saying no to all these other women and you're passing my test. But for you, since you're actually a woman, it was your congruency test was to actually see if a man's worth being with you.
This was things that came further down the road. In the beginning, I was just trying out all the, things I was reading about from Mystery. And I got really into NLP in the beginning, which is the whole Ross Jeffries thing, right? And then I met him late in my career. And it was a very disillusioning moment.
Yeah, I think it wasn't Ross Jeffries, but there's another guy like him, another old guy. if I think hard enough, I might remember his name. He always wore a hat and he had long hair. I think Steve something.
Oh, I can't remember.
He had like
anymore.
it was like, it was really, I think he had like the tiger hypnosis, some animal.
Okay.
And I remember reading his books and being like, wow, this guy's like really understands the mind. And I saw him in a webinar because this was a little bit later and like you had to show your face in a webinar. I was like, I can't believe this dude is who I've been reading. Like, you know, I just couldn't, you know, just pre-social media. It's like, I just assumed he was normal looking at least.
Yeah. I've had a lot of these moments within the community in general, because everything was going on online anonymously, right? You had an avatar, you usually had an alias, and people could present themselves in certain ways online. You could really just write whatever they wanted to, right? So I've had a few moments where I've had someone who presented themselves to be something very specific. And when you met them in real life at a seminar or at a group meeting or something, it was like, I'm sorry, what? Like nothing was congruent at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the dangers of most of it happening online.
Wait, so to go back a sec. So before you developed your own thing, you were 17 and you just started going out and approaching men?
So I just started in the beginning. I would have a friend with me. I'd be like, do you want to try these things? And they were like, yeah, let's try it. And they'd always like fizzle out 2 weeks later. And so it ended up becoming me going out alone Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And
not
in Denmark,
drinking,
you can like drink at 18 or something?
Yeah, like I could be drinking if I wanted to at that point, but I didn't because I wanted to be clear in the head while I was trying things.
And was your goal to like bring men home and sleep with them? Or?
Not in the beginning. I mean, it was really just figuring out how do I find a technique so that when I see a person I'm interested in, this person can become, can go into the role I want them to have in my life. So I meet a guy, he's interesting, but I only want to sleep with him. Like he's good looking. I want to sleep with him once, right? So that's what happens. Or I meet a guy and I'm like, this guy I want to keep seeing, but it doesn't mean I want to stop seeing other guys. So he becomes that. Like being able to choose what I wanted when I wanted was the main driver of the whole thing.
So all right. So when I'm coaching guys who like maybe have been influenced too much by pickup, you know, maybe it's great for them to go approaching and doing that thing for a while. But what I always kind of ultimately nudge them towards is like, I'll even say like, imagine what it's like to be a hot girl. Like you're not going out trying to like target someone or like you're not trying to approach 10 people. Or, you know, you're just living your life. I mean, hot girl or James Bond, those are like the two things. It's like, these are people who just know they're attractive. Like they just have this confidence. They just go about their lives and they assume that they're going to meet people for whatever. And that's kind of what everybody really wants, not to be able to pick up someone in a blizzard on the street. I'm wondering also, again, because you're a woman, at some point did you feel like, oh, I'm attractive? Like I don't have to think how to engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. How soon did that happen?
So it didn't happen because I was like, I'm a woman, I'm attractive. It happened because I was like, I'm at a point now where all the things I've been practicing have been internalized to the point where it's become who I am.
Okay.
And it's really hard to explain, but I think everyone who is in pickup long enough should hopefully at some point move from the outside to the inside, right? So it starts becoming inner game is what they used to call it.
Yeah.
How to really authentically embody this person that you have kind of practiced becoming until it becomes the person you are.
Yeah.
You are better socially. You are an attractive person to other people. You do have charisma.
But then some people also would just become jaded about the game. And like it's, because I might have brought this up, I might have been mentioning this to Andreas. Like I saw when I think I was 19, I saw Mark Manson, who back then went by Entropy. That was his alias. Mark Manson, right? He's a self-help writer.
I can't. If I know
Okay.
him, I can't remember.
He's a really big self-help writer
Okay.
now, but he started in pickup many years ago. And I saw him speak, and he was saying something like, okay, there's two kinds of people who go into pickup. There's escalators and there's calibrators. Escalators are great at escalating and they have no calibration. Calibrators really want to be calibrated, so they have a hard time approaching because they want to not be awkward or not be weird or not make people uncomfortable. And he's like, okay, the escalators obviously eventually become calibrated because they approach 20 people or 100, many hundred people without knowing what they're doing. They eventually develop social calibration, whereas the calibrators often are the ones who get stuck year after year not approaching. And I think anyone who's like kind of sensitive is a calibrator. Like you don't want to upset people. You don't want to, harm anyone or, anything. However, what I've seen from my friends who've gone through pickup, especially the escalators, they might be really good at approaching and maybe they never had approach anxiety, but they seem to have troubles in their relationships because they're still always gaming. They're still, and then there's one guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's like really big in the red pill world. Definitely accelerated very quickly. I knew him. He's about my age. Had the worst divorce. Like his wife cheated on him because he basically couldn't stop being a robot, a social robot. I forgot why I brought this up. But.
Yeah. No, I think this is definitely like they are there. And I think this is what happens if you don't start doing inner game. Like you don't start integrating. Like integrating, embodying, understanding on a deeper level than just like this is something I read in a book and so I'm doing that. But understanding like the actual connectedness that's underneath it, which enables a sincere and real connection with other people. Like having all these steps, like you talk about approaching, right? That's the first step, approaching someone, and then you go to the next one and the next one, and at some point you're going to reach building rapport. And building rapport also means that you have to be honest about who you are. And this is where the game, if your game is superficial or it's only something that you've read and applied but haven't embodied, this is where it becomes really fragile in rapport because you can't build deep rapport with someone if you're not vulnerable, if you're not open.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, you need to know who you are and you need to like who you are, right? So if you don't and it's all on a surface level, then of course it's going to fail.
So could you say more about like what was modified for women? Like, was it still approach based?
Okay, so let me see if I can remember. So this is like 14 years ago, right? That I was like on my height of my coaching career. And yeah, so some of the modifiers would be, I used to have this rule that regardless of how you go about closing a person, which is what we called it, he had to, at some level, it didn't matter if it was like unconscious or conscious, he had to be able to rationalize that he picked you up.
Okay.
So, and some, like it could be really small things, but he just had to have some sense of
he was
control.
The hunter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be one thing. And
because
so,
if you didn't, he would feel emasculated.
Yeah.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. Quickly. So one of the, my brain is like scattering all over the place because I could go 20 ways with this. One of the problems I got once I reached like a certain point in my career or
journey,
was that, journey, was that guys would kind of crumble. And for a long time, I had difficulty figuring out where it went wrong. Like I was sure I was doing something, but I couldn't put my finger on what I was doing. And they would just become really quickly these shells of the people that they, I think, were supposed to be. And it was really very frustrating from my side. I was like, why is no one able to like stay in themselves?
Even though you wanted control and you were taking kind of a male approach, you still wanted the man to be a man. Otherwise, it was unattractive. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing ended up being, so as a woman, the first step I would say to anyone learning anything with social dynamics would be to figure out what you want, right? So what are you looking for? Are you looking for a partner? Are you looking for fun? What are you looking for? Which attributes are you looking for in this person? And so I had a very clear sense of the men I was looking for. And I was screening for that really, really hard, using different techniques of screening to figure out, like, does this person match what I want? And so some of these attributes that I was looking for was a man who was very embodied in himself, able to stand in himself, regardless of whatever I was really throwing at him at that point.
So that would be a good application of shit tests.
That would be a good application of shit test, yeah. I used to use shit tests in like different situations, and there was a lot of talk about, like, it was a very manipulative field to be in, right? So there was a lot of talk about how do we get the other person to conform to what we want them to conform to. It's a very egotistical space to come out of. And one of the ways that I found out I could quickly get guys to kind of submit to the frame that I was presenting them would be to shit test them. And
because the guys who wouldn't conform would opt out of, or like they would by default fail the shit test. Or they would pass in a different way,
Yeah, probably that's the right answer. Yeah. So I would use it as like a punishment for people not conforming to what I wanted them to conform to. Or I would use it as if a guy is presenting himself as like, yeah, I'm the alpha of the group, right?
Yeah.
So you throw him a shit test
to
test the congruency of that frame that he is presenting there.
Okay, I want to ask about the emasculation piece because I've had this discussion with Nalaya at different times of like when a woman, it was in the context of like Instagram models and OnlyFans and kind of what I think culture is pushing towards young women. It's like when a woman is hypersexual and out there and like kind of in her masculine, so to speak, it's very sexy. It's kind of the fodder for male fantasy, but a man doesn't want to date a woman like that. Like he wants to have a one-night stand with her. I'm wondering if you experienced something like that.
So I was very brazen at the end of all of it, and I would be very direct. Very direct. One of the first things I said to my now husband, Andreas, who also did pick up, was something like he was speaking with one of my friends who was at the seminar with me from, like, she was studying psychology, so she was there for that part of the seminar. And I was just getting frustrated that they were like, this is boring. You're talking and about something that I don't care about. Like, this is really boring for me.
You were in the conversation?
No, I was like walking beside them, right? So I think this was one of the first things I said to him. I looked at him and I said, oh my God, why can't she just put your dick in her mouth already and get it over with? And then I walked off, right? So these sort of like statements for like, would it's also kind of a shit test. Like shit testing is also to gauge reaction. How do guys react when I act like this? And it gives you such a good view into how confident this person is, how calm he is, how like centered in himself he is, or how much you can shake him.
Did you ever feel rejected by maybe a guy who could pass the test, but he was like, oh, I don't actually want to hang with a woman with a potty mouth or something like that?
I've never, ever tried that.
Huh. Okay. Because, this is tangential, but I forget if I mentioned this before, but after pickup, I joined a sex cult to kind of heal my emotional wounds from pickup. And it was a female-run cult, and it was like they really taught women to be empowered and direct and sexual, and women are the hunters kind of thing. And something that I saw, and it the whole community had kind of a shit test that if you were too masculine, you probably were just uncomfortable there because women ran everything.
Okay.
So the men that were there were like men who were a little bit more sensitive, a little more feminine. I think I was one of these men. And something that we'd see a lot would be, here were women basically choosing who they wanted to sleep with in many cases. And very often they found the men couldn't get it up. And my interpretation years later, and I kind of got a sense of this then, is just like, they put the men in such a passive feminine role that even if the woman was beautiful and she was confident, she's basically, I want to fuck you. The guy's body was just like, I don't know. It's not working because I feel like a woman right now, which I had some experiences with. I'm wondering if that showed up in your social dynamic stuff.
So this is where the whole, like, he needs to in some way be able to rationalize that he got you. This is where this comes in. And you would have guys who would be like a normal guy who's not in pickup, right? He will normally have approach anxiety. He will have escalation anxiety. He will maybe have doubts about, can I even bring home a girl? Like the normal thoughts that he's not in a state of mind where he's like, I'll go in and I'll just approach 100 women and I'll take home whoever I want, which is what the mindset of some of these pickup people would be, right? So being someone interested in a guy like this, let's say this, civilian. And social dynamics, it is giving him excuses to proceed in the interaction and to escalate the interaction. So it can be, you can approach him. It's not a problem. You can approach him with in a sort of way where it's like, I see you seeing me and I appreciate it. So giving him permission to go into that.
So a carrot
frame.
Every once in a while. Okay.
So like, I thought you were going to come up to me and then you just went over here to play pool with your friends. Like, I'll go next door and you can find me when you're done. So now he has an excuse to approach you.
Oh, so it's like a very explicit, because they would call them approach invitations, but you're actually laying it out, not just giving him a look.
You can give a look, but sometimes it's not enough. You will have guys who still will feel apprehensive.
Because that's what I've heard a lot from my female friends who are beautiful and like they're at a party and they're like, oh, this guy's checking me out, and like they're waiting all night for him to approach. And then she's like, oh, she must have not liked me. It's like, no, he was just anxious.
Yeah. And I would never advise anyone to just sit at a party all night. Like I would do rounds throughout the club, like every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And everyone would have seen me 50 times.
So actually, I want to go on a tangent and come back to this, but because you said a normal guy who has approach anxiety and all of that stuff. Yeah. Did pickup teach you, or did pickup change your view of men? Because I've had other women. I had two female friends on the podcast some time ago. They're beautiful women. They've had their view of reality and of men, and like we were talking about nice guy syndrome. It was a new term for them, and they're like, oh, I don't understand. Like nice guys are great. I'm like, no, you're only thinking of the 20% of men that you would ever consider dating. The other 80% of men that make up the majority, you'd laugh at them or be grossed out if they asked you out. And these are the men that are most men. Like you're thinking of the small slice of men that you would actually date because they're confident. A bunch of them are assholes, but that's a very small mind. It might even be 10% or 5% of men. Anyway, it seems like you have maybe a more accurate view of the male population.
I think I got to I had a phase where I only dated pickup artists just because like. I would meet guys and it was just not fun anymore. Like there was no back and forth. They could not follow the level of communication I wanted them to follow at that point. And so I ended up marrying a pickup coach, right? But it's, I think I have a good idea of what it's like to be a guy in the dating world also because I coached them, right? So I've seen that side of the anxiety, the like almost having panic attacks at the thought of having to approach someone and dealing with that and seeing that from their side. And I know it from myself. Like I could not approach in the beginning. I was scared shitless. And I know I'm not a guy, but I've worked with them. I've seen that. I've been a part of the community for a long time.
And you went through like a male's hero's journey within it.
Yeah. And I did actually have a phase where I was really tired of men. Like I was just like, men are useless. They can't do anything I want them to do. They all like just fall apart and I don't want to deal with it anymore. And I would start picking up girls instead, mostly because I just could and I wanted to try. And the techniques, assuming that masculine role works so easy on women, even women who are not identifying as anything bisexual or lesbian or anything.
I had a few questions off of that. It did remind me of like in the cult, because women were the hunters. It was for the first time I saw many beautiful women get rejected for the first time, because just like any community, eventually there was a Pareto distribution where even amongst this group of men in the sex cult, only 10 or 20% were attractive. So they were getting all the approaches, and then they would sometimes say no. And then you would see like a woman who's young and attractive has never been rejected in her life when she propositioned sex, not being able to handle it, which is anyone who's getting rejected for the first time is going to act that way. But it was like, it's like such an interesting thing.
And what did it look like? Like, what were you seeing?
It'd be kind of like this in indignus, is that the word? Or is like just like how dare you? Like I'm a woman, I'm a beautiful woman offering you sex. How dare you say no? Like there must be something wrong with you. Which you could imagine the really misogynistic man or the really hurt man having this kind of reaction, like how dare this woman say no to my advance?
Yeah.
But you would see that in women because it was preposterous to them. They'd always been hunted their whole lives. Yeah.
I think many women still, like, we're all brought up in the same society, right? So we come into the dating world from a frame where many women do feel like they have a certain amount of control from being approached. And that will express itself in what you're seeing there, that they feel like they have inherent value. And it comes from, how do I explain this?
Well, I don't know if this is what you're about to say, but you know Rollo Tomasi? Do you read any Red Pill stuff or have
no,
you? Okay.
No.
Red Pill's like Red Pill's the big brother of pickup, or the philosophical brother of pickup. Anyway, one of the things one of the ideas that is spread in that community is like all women are solipsic. Like all women think the whole world revolves around them, and it's easy to confirm this if you do look at specifically young female behavior of like, oh yeah, I'm a hot woman, so of course men come to me, right?
I think almost all people think the world revolves around them, and that's just what it's like being human. But I think going into interactions with other people, coming from a space where you believe that everyone has inherent value, is what would change that dynamic, really.
Well, I was even going to say that maybe the darker side is like if you go out and approach and you find out you get rejected more often than not, that kind of pops the bubble of like, you're putting yourself through humiliation, especially early on, unless you're really good looking or naturally charismatic.
I don't think anyone goes through, if you decide to do this journey and become good at something, you will be bad in the beginning. That's just how it is. And I don't think it matters what you look like or who you are. You're gonna suck in the beginning because it's a trial and error. And people will give up and they'll say, oh, this is because the other people, like women, they suck, or men, they suck, and blah, 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 instead of being like, maybe I just suck right now.
Yeah. But I guess that is the difference, whether it's cultural or natural, between men and women in dating. It's like most women aren't trying to adopt a skill set,
Exactly.
whereas even a guy who's not into pickup or has never heard of it, he's gonna realize, unless he's really gorgeous, like he's got to go approach and get rejected usually.
Yeah.
You know?
I think women are really robbing themselves of what they really want. Like I used to say that there is such a difference between what women want, what they need, and what they get. And being a woman and moving into the role of people are supposed to approach me, and I am supposed to pick and choose of the people coming to me, gives you a very small pool of people to pick. And it's not going to get you really what it is. Like the trick is getting the three to be the same thing, right? What you want, what you need, and what you get. And you're not going to find that but by sitting on your ass in a bar somewhere and waiting for this guy to come up to you. Like, you need to be proactive in finding this specific thing, and you need to know what you're looking for.
Have you heard of Mama Gina?
No.
Mama Gina School of the Womanly Arts. It's like it's a whole other school, but like, so a lot of the women in that community were also in my cult community. And she taught something interesting of, I don't actually know the specifics, as women only, but like she taught something interesting about like basically getting men to hunt you, but they're in control. It's like topping from the bottom kind of thing. I don't know the specifics, but I am curious about maybe your thought now, if you were advising a young woman now or someone like yourself, I would imagine you wouldn't tell them to go approach 10 guys a night, or would you? I don't know.
Depending on where she's coming from.
Okay.
Like, does she know how to do that naturally? No? Okay, then do it. Like, practice the things you suck at. So
even like you would start with that over like learning how to invite a man or empower a man via approach invitations.
Yeah,
or something.
because if you're sitting and waiting for him, but you're making a like invitation with your eyes or whatever, the whole interaction is still hanging on the assumption that he will approach you, and sometimes they don't. And like, you need to be able to do the things you're expecting from others, right? Can you do them yourself? And if you can't, you're gonna get stuck again with the people who have the guts to approach you, but that might not be the person that you're actually looking for. Like, be proactive in what you want.
And so you wouldn't feel that. Well, all right. So like, I mean, I'm not even trying to argue. I'm just imagining, like, you don't think that maybe a person who's like inherently like, feminine, or like that's still and I'm thinking of like the generic spiritual Instagram post of attract, don't chase, or something like that. Like, you would say that's bullshit or something.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I would.
Fair enough.
I mean, speaking of this specifically, I'm sure you can sit at a bar and guys will come up to you, but you only have the pick of the people who come up. And why would you settle for that?
Okay. Fair enough.
And just because you approach someone is, like I said, there's so many ways of doing it. If you're just interested in a one night stand with someone, it's really easy. Even if you want him to feel like he's chasing you, it's really easy. Like, you can. One of the quickest ways I remember escalating things would be being very direct in the way that you want him to act. So not necessarily being like, I'm gonna take you home, or blah blah blah, but being like, it's way quieter over here. You should take me you should take me over to the couch. Lead him, help him lead you.
Yeah.
And in the end of the night, he'll be like, you also help him
feel empowered,
yes,
in control.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's a lot of what I heard from the Mama Gina's world. Okay, so now relationships. So first, did you pick up Andreas, or he picked up you?
Everyone asks us that. I mean, we were working for the same coaching company, right? But in different cities of Denmark, so we had never met. And we got seated next to each other at the seminar. He was doing a lesson, like a talk at the seminar where Ross Jeffries was always also there. And we just vibed, and then he got my number from our boss, and he wrote me a few days later. So if that's what counts, then he picked me up probably.
But did you decide you wanted him or something?
Yeah.
Okay. But in contradiction of what you just said, you didn't take control of the situation.
So it was really interesting with Andreas, because when I met him, I was at a point where I was so beaten down and just like exhausted by men and exhausted by no one living up to the expectations I wanted from a partner. I was dating at that time, like I had been dating 5 guys for like 5 or 6 months and then going out and seeing other people on the side, right? But this, I never had like a primary person that didn't work for me. So I had like multiple people that I was dating equally, and I liked all of them and they were great. But I never imagined I was going to be in a monogamous relationship at that time. And then I met Andreas, and he had this very quiet, nonchalant, kind of just calm about him. And he didn't flinch. Like not even for a second. I used to also bodily very like shit test guys if they were assuming this very like masculine role, stepping close to a guy who is trying to present himself as someone who takes control and is masculine and is centered in himself. Like if you just take a step forward and go really close to them, like really close to their face, usually, most of the time, you will see a flinch of some kind, like the eyes darting to the side. He's thinking, what should I do next? What is the right step? And already going into that mindset, I was like, oh, God damn it. Like he already failed the shit test because he's thinking of how to respond to me, which means that we're already in the frame that I put up. So he's not centered in himself. And I did this with Andreas at the seminar because he was saying something, and there were a lot of people there. And I stepped up to him, like so close to him. And there was
While he was on stage?
No.
Okay.
This was there was a break. And I stepped up close to him, looked him straight in the eye, was like this far from him, like really a lot of bodily sexual tension. And he just looked at me. Like he was just like mirroring myself back to myself. I was just like shot back into my body and became extremely aware of like who I am, what I'm doing, where I am. Like there was no reaction in him, not in a way of like, I'm going to be non-reactive, because even that you can sense immediately.
Yeah.
But just like a quiet calm of like, you know.
And that was sexy to you?
That was all I had been looking for.
Because no man so far had been able to, I mean, I'm using my kind of language, but put you in your feminine, right? Like you weren't in control in that moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was looking for someone who could handle the amount of whatever it was I was presenting and still stay in himself. Yeah.
So then what happened?
Yeah, I mean, he got my number after that, and we spoke on the phone like 4 hours every day, every night for 3 weeks. And then I went to visit him, and we had a 3-day date, and then we practically lived together from that point on.
And then was it like a lifestyle change for both of you, or?
No, because we were both only coaching in the weekends. So I would have boot camps from Friday to Sunday, some weekends, and the weekdays I had off. And so we would just like sometimes live in his city, and then we would go to my city, stay there for a few months, go back and forth. Like we had a really relaxed.
And then when did you guys get out of the pickup world? And like, how did that decision come about?
I think after a year together, I think I was at a point where it's like, Yeah.
And he was already getting his master's in psychology?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. And he proposed to me after 11 months together. And I think I was just at a point where it was like all the guys I was dating, they had naturally I'd been like, no, like it's not, there's no room for you anymore. Like, and very naturally we started living in a monogamous relationship.
Was that like a hard discussion? Because I guess you were both dating other people.
I think we resisted it for a long time. Yeah, because he had a girlfriend when I met him.
Okay.
And he was in an open relationship with her, and he was dating other women on the side. And before our first date, like the night before, he broke up with her. And I think he also had a sense of like, this is not someone I'm going to date while I'm dating. So, like, this is something's got to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it a hard discussion?
It
like,
was,
we're going to be monogamous?
It was a lot of resistance in the beginning, and it was messy in the beginning. And then I think it was at some point, probably around the 9-month, 10-month mark, it was like 100% we're just only gonna spend energy on each other.
And then you both quit. He became a psychologist, and you went to midwifery school.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got my sexology degree, and then I went to midwifery in the university after that.
And then you had Atlas.
Yeah.
Some years later.
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay.
Later. Yeah.
So all right. Do you feel does any pickup stuff? Is there any presence of it in your relationship?
No.
Yeah, because it's funny. Both of you. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, I guess it was easier for me to imagine Andreas just because I've met so many. He seems like so gentle, and like both of you guys seem so sweet. But I've seen enough guys who are like that. Run boot camp. So I could imagine that. It's really hard to imagine. I can imagine it now, but it was really hard to imagine. Like, oh wait, really? Like when you said when you were having lunch at our place, it's like, oh wait, really? Like, yeah. Oh, okay. Because like that dynamic, when I would imagine two dating coaches dating each other, and maybe these were your previous relationships, but like, it just wouldn't be so sweet, or it'd be a lot more power and fire.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I think like I am definitely not the person I was when I met him. And it's funny for me to think back on the things that I used to believe and the things I used to do, and the way that people used to perceive me. Because you are describing me as a very sweet person, and that was not the words that would have been used at that time. And I definitely was in another place.
So how did that change?
I think, I think definitely finding someone who could just like hold the space that I needed to hold to be able to be like, okay, I can relax now. Like I found a person who has all the qualities that I'm looking for. I've screened him into hell for all the things that I'm looking for. I've tested him on all the things that I need to know that he's able to handle with me, and then I could just like let it go.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you have two boys.
Yeah.
I assume you don't mind them eventually finding out their parents were dating coaches. I'm curious because especially your older boys, like he's very social. I was curious how much conscious thought maybe went into, I don't know, his future dating life, or like him not being shy or awkward or being someone who would need a boot camp.
He naturally came out and was like, I'm the greatest. Hello, meet me. See how awesome I am. And so that is all on him.
Okay.
Like this birthday he had a few weeks ago with 50 people coming, all people that he has like gotten to know while we were out and about. It's not, we don't try to actively teach him anything. He is a very social person. But yeah, I'm curious about how it's going to be when he gets older. I think there's definitely a more openness to talk about things. I mean, his dad is a psychologist, right? I'm a sexologist. I think the problem would be not embarrassing him, maybe more than the opposite.
Does it ever come up, or has it ever been a discussion of like, I guess, well, anyway, I think about and talk about masculinity a lot, and like there's certain things that are just like principles that maybe are even my own biases on how a boy should be raised, or to make sure he's not the one who's overlooked or the one who's shat on or who's amogged, or to use the old terms. Has that ever come up?
No.
Okay.
No. It's I feel like he should just, like, the best thing I can do as a mom is leave him to be completely embodied in the person he is. And I don't know best. Like, I don't know the person he should be. So I'm just going to leave him to flourish, and I'm going to take care of the boundaries around him, of like protecting him and slowly making those boundaries looser and looser. But I'm sure that he has an innate ability to be the person he's supposed to be, and trusting that.
Cool. Yeah, I asked Andreas a little bit about this when he was on the podcast, but like homeschooling philosophy, it sounds like, I mean, mainly because Atlas is the older one, like kind of his interests in some way direct your family travels. Yeah. Yeah. Was that a conscious choice, or?
Yeah, it became a conscious choice. I think in the beginning, we started full-time world traveling in 2019.
And so he was like
4.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the beginning, we were going places we wanted to go. I mean, we're still going places we want to go, but we're finding opportunities for him to lean into the interests he has and the things he wants to explore, the things he wants to learn. And we don't have any bias as to what that is. Like, he's a 9-year-old boy and he's doing a lot of horsemanship. Go for it. Like, I love that for you. And I think some parents would probably be like, no, that's a girl sport. But like, do whatever you want. He's done jiu-jitsu. He's learned Latin dances. He does a lot of chess. He loves horses. And he's just like, I'm sure he knows who he is. And I'm just going to trust that.
Cool. And is it kind of like with a curriculum, or like it's just, so every day is, what is that every day like? Because I know Andreas works a few hours every morning.
Yeah. So I'm with the kids and it's really open. Like, we don't have a schedule. We did try having a schedule when we were living in Spain, and I don't think it was, I don't think he thrived in that necessarily. So it is very open, and every day we, like, when Andreas is done with work, we kind of have like a talk of what is the consensus of what this day is going to look like from here on out, because he's done with work at like 10 a.m. So we've had our breakfast, we've woken up, done some activities, maybe whatever the kids want to do, play chess or read, or Yeah,
I'm looking forward to when my kids are old enough to have discussions. I mean, they're still, anyway, they're still babies, so yeah.
They're discussing in their own way.
Yeah. Cool. Anything you want to go back to? I feel like we went to...
I don't know.
Any message you have for young women or men out there?
I mean, I feel like everyone could benefit from practicing what they're bad at. And I think a lot of people, social dynamics is one of the areas that people don't take control of. They just take what comes to them, and they end up in relationships with people they're not compatible with, or who aren't giving them what they actually need. And
do you feel you think much in social situations?
No, not anymore. Like, when I started doing pickup, everything was analyzed in the moment, and I would go home and I would write it down, and I would be like, what went well, what went wrong, what do I have to practice next time, blah, 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 like systematically going through the interactions. And then at some point it becomes natural and things happen by itself.
Is it, because for myself, like, I feel like, all right, I was very shy and quiet and awkward. I kind of built a persona. I had some, like, I was very out there when I was in the cult. And then I've kind of like gone back to my original. I mean, I don't have the insecurities, but I still kind of feel like, you know, I'm not the most social person.
Yeah.
I'm fairly quiet.
Yeah.
I'm awkward at times. Am I bothered by it? Not really. Sometimes I do think like, oh yeah, this would have been a place to like, you know, throw in like a biting joke, but you know, it's not like a thing, you know, I feel like I've reverted back to my natural personality.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, I think is overall good. It's an overall authentic, but then I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes maybe it is good to think about this stuff. I don't know.
I think definitely funny point with reverting back, because I think I have reverted back a lot, but I'm just not so insecure of what I have to offer the world anymore. Like going from a point where I was like, I don't know if I have anything to offer, to being like, I can offer everything, right? You go on this high, and it really feels like being high when you're in that environment. And then going back to like, I don't have to be anything specific other than what I am to have value.
Yeah, I've wondered if I've needed to go on that journey. Did I need to do? I mean, I think it led to something, but like, if someone told me, no, there's a way to be confident and attractive and still be kind of quiet, would I have needed that? I don't know. It's something you know, you'll never know, I guess, but I think
I needed to go through it. I wouldn't have been I probably wouldn't have met Andreas, but I also wouldn't have been a person that he was interested in a long-term relationship with.
If you didn't do pickup?
No, I don't think so. Because it taught me to be the type of woman who was also offering the things that the man I was looking for was looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Interesting. So now you're a midwife.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about that maybe before we close up?
I mean, we travel and I work when I want to, sort of like I take clients here and there and do home birth. And it's been a funny process going from like pickup and then coaching and then having all these questions like more scientifically about sexuality, and then being like, shit, I need to know more, and doing a sexology degree, and then meeting a midwife there who's also studying sexology and being like, whoa, this person is embodying something that I want in my life, and then going into midwifery.
So your whole journey has been really about the human mating ritual in different aspects.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So Worldwide Midwife, you're like the worldwide family.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.